Hello everyone out there, it's Smash Boop here! And today, new episode of The D-Files. It's happening. And we're getting to my personal all-time favorite killer in the game, the Deathslinger. I love this guy. The Deathslinger is so much fun. Yeehaw boy is what I call him, for good reason. He's a fucking cowboy. Look at him! Oh my god, I'm so excited. Now, in the poll, of course, you guys ended up tying between this guy and the hag will be the topic of the next episode. But the Deathslinger is coming up next because I love the Deathslinger and I wanted to do him anyway. So let's get into his lore, shall we? Born in the dust-ridden badlands of the American Midwest, Caleb Quinn was son to struggling Irish immigrants. On the edge of the frontier, sickness, famine, and death were common sights, and pioneers contended for whatever scraps they could claim while tycoons feasted. Caleb's father, once an engineer, had a few options to ply his trade as businesses posted a common sign, "No Irish need apply." His antique tools laid untouched for years until Caleb uncovered them. Noticing his son's interest in the trade, he gifted him his old wrench. The devices Caleb made under his father's guidance had quaint applications, but when his father was away, they took a grim turn. He had plans for a mask that would gouge barbed needles into humans' eyes and rip them from their own sockets, complete with sketches of how of it fitted on boys who bullied him. With age, Caleb's engineering abilities became marketable, and employers put their discrimination aside. Henry Bayshore, the owner of the United West Rail, hired him. Caleb first invented a gun that shot railroad spikes into the ground. Next, he made a steam-powered tunneling drill, but as Bayshore feigned indifference, the devices began turning up at other companies, the patents stolen from Caleb and sold. A familiar sensation coursed through Caleb's blood, feeding the sharp pain in his heart. Rage overwhelmed him. He burst into Bayshore's office and smashed his face into a bloody stew. As he was pulled away, he pushed his specialized gun to his boss's gut and squeezed the trigger. A railroad spike plowed through his skin and viscera, nailing Bayshore to his desk. The only thing that saved Caleb from hanging was Bayshore's unlikely survival. For 15 years, Caleb was confined to Hellshire Penitentiary, the nation's first private prison. In a fortress of illiterate convicts, he found an unlikely friend in the educated prison warden. He designed torture devices for him, and in return received extra meals. After a time, the warden offered to commute his sentence. He spoke of something greater than monetary wealth, political capital, and that his connections could have Bayshore framed and rotting behind bars for life. He only had one request: make him rich, fill the prison, use ingenuity to bring outlaws in alive. Caleb returned to his workshop, and with a few modifications, emerged with something new. The spear gun. The first trial occurred when a thief robbed a Chinese laundry. Seizing on the opportunity, Caleb unleashed his prototype. Metal joints screeched as the spike shot forward, gouging into the victim's abdomen. But as the spear tugged, it caught the thief's intestines, and with an ungodly sound, yanked them into the dusty road. After several iterations and disembowelments dwindled. But Caleb had already earned his new nickname, the Deathslinger. Looking to protect his asset, the prison warden pulled strings and released Irish immigrants to form Caleb's posse. The Hellshire Gang was born. For 6 years they roamed the country, collecting wanted outlaws for the prison, fulfilling their end of the bargain. After a bloody battle at Glenvale, Caleb caught notice of a newspaper headline: Henry Bayshore purchases Hellshire Penitentiary. In the picture, a disfigured Bayshore proudly shook the warden's hand. Caleb's heart pounded with rage, blood swelling as if it would burst from his veins. He had been sold out! a pawn in a rich man's game. The Hellshire gang pledged their loyalty to Caleb and called for the warden's head. In a thundering gallop, they smashed through the prison entrance, shrieking like bloodthirsty marauders. A guard raised his pistol, but hesitated. A spear punctured his chest. Caleb grabbed the man's head and slammed it against a prison cell until it spilled through the bars. Reaching the warden's office, Caleb kicked the door and was met with a fortunate sight. It wasn't only the prison warden, who cowered in a corner, but Henry Bayshore. Overpowered with rage, Caleb rushed Bayshore. Oh, shit! I'm so sorry. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, my God, I'm so sorry. It wasn't only the prison warden who cowered in a corner, but Henry Bayshore. Overpowered with rage, Caleb rushed Bayshore, beating, bludgeoning, tearing at his flesh. The man's blood dripped from his face, crimson pooling at his feet. The Hellshire gang swarmed the warden, snapping bones with each kick. With the two men broken and begging for death, the posse dragged them into the commons, where they were left to the growing crowd of prisoners. Soaked in blood and sweat, Caleb hobbled to his old cell, hardly paying notice to Bayshore's screams. He sat on the bed's edge as drops of blood ran from his fingertips. A thick, unnatural fog streamed through the barred window. He pulled out his old wrench, cracked and rusted, and ran a thumb along the metal, regarding it with faded eyes. He couldn't remember when it came into his possession. He didn't care to remember. At his feet he saw a dusty path, and at its end, silhouettes of all that had done him wrong. The boys who bullied him, the executives who took advantage of him. Again, Henry Bayshore. Emerging from the fog were the tools to dispose of them. Unforgiving steel hooks, brilliant and beautiful in their simplicity. Pain tore through his leg as he stood, but he endured, pushing onward. So yeah, the Deathslinger has, in my opinion, the best backstory. Very detailed, very graphic, of course, for a horror game. And I love his aesthetic. So, getting into his perks. His perks, they're not good. I'm just going to say it now. They're not good. We got Gearhead. You've got an ear for well-oiled gears. After hitting a survivor 2 times with your basic attack, Gearhead activates for 20 seconds. When Gearhead is active, each time a survivor completes a good skill check while repairing, the generator will be revealed by a yellow aura for as long as it is being repaired. This is a, D tier perk. This is not good at all. The requirement is so specific, having to hit 2 survivors with a basic attack, only for it to activate for 20 seconds. And not only that, the survivor has to hit a skill check during that time. Then you're able to see the generator and see where they're working. You know what else does that? Discordance, which doesn't have a limit to it. If multiple people are working on a generator, you can see it. Surveillance, whenever you break a generator and someone goes to work on it, it just is white, it's just yellow. It's just a worse version of every other surveillance perk in the game. It's just not a good perk. Same issue with Dead Man's Switch. This issue is that it was too complicated. Same thing with Dead Man's Switch. You become obsessed with one survivor. After hooking the obsession, Dead Man's Switch activates for the next 35, 40, or 45 seconds. While activated, any survivor that stops repairing a generator before it is fully repaired causes the entity to block that generator off until Dead Man's Switch ends. Affected generators are highlighted by a white aura, and the killer can only be obsessed with one survivor at a time. This is another D tier perk. This only lasts for 35 seconds. This would be better if a generator during the 35 seconds, if that requirement was met, that someone stopped repairing it, it would be blocked off for that time. But no, it's only till the 35 seconds ends, which is nothing. It is nothing. It's so not good. The Ghostface has a better perk called Thrilling Tremors, which I'll get to later. It's just a better version of this in every way. His only semi-good perk is Hex Retribution, a hex that lashes out upon its destruction. Those who cross you will be punished. This is, I would say, a B- perk. Any survivor who cleanses a dull totem will suffer the Oblivious status effect for 35 seconds. So, if you were to break a dull totem, you would not be able to hear the killer's turret radius for 35 seconds, which is actually pretty good. And if a hex totem is cleaned, including this one, the auras of all survivors are revealed to you for 10 seconds. So you're able to see across the map where all survivors are when this thing is broken, and any other hex perks. This pairs really well with other hex perks that you want to run. Specifically, if you wanted to run this, Thrill of the Hunt, Devour Hope, and any of the other ones. Ruin, you could run Ruin, you could run Noed, you could run all the other hex perks. This is crucial for a good hex totem build. Now, getting into his power. For his power, he wields a gun. He wields a gun called the Redeemer. The Deathslinger's ingenuity affords him the ability to reel in bounties with a unique invention, a heavily modified hybrid rifle that replaces conventional ammunition with a razor-sharp spear affixed to the chain. So this thing is essentially a harpoon gun. Don't worry, the entity is not gonna allow bullets to be in this game. Press and hold the power button to aim down the sights. Press the attack button to shoot a spear that can lodge itself into a survivor, allowing them to be reeled in towards the Deathslinger against their will. So, you have to aim at a survivor, and this is what happens whenever you skewer them. While a survivor is speared by the Redeemer, press and hold the power button to reel them in towards you. Survivors may struggle against the chain or use environment to pressure the chain to break. Doing so will result in briefly stunning the Deathslinger, as well as putting the survivor in the injured state and applying the deep wound status effect. Using a basic attack while the survivor is speared will break the chain without applying a penalty to either the Deathslinger or the survivor. Successfully hitting a survivor with a basic attack while they are speared and healthy will also apply the deep wound status effect. So, this is the whole reason I love this killer. This power is so interesting, because whenever you spear someone, the survivor can move with the chain, and they have to try and get behind some sort of obstacles or anything to try and break the chain. If they do, the Deathslinger, it says a briefly stunning, it stuns him for like 5 seconds, which is so long when it comes to being in a chase. It's so long. But whenever you skewer them, you have to reel them in. It's like a little mini game. You have to reel them back in. And what's weird is that you would think you can move while a person is skewered. However, you would think moving forward would be the best option, but it's actually the slowest way to do it. The best way is actually to move backward. It increases the rate at which the chain is brought back. Not many people know that, but that's actually the best way to do it. So, yeah. So that's the Deathslinger's power. Gun. It's really powerful. He also has a smaller terror radius than usual. Instead of the usual 32 meters, he has a 24 meter terror radius. This is meant to pair with the fact that he is a ranged killer, and that he actually has a slower base speed. Instead of the 4.6% movement speed that most killers have, he has a 4.4 meter movement speed. Meaning he only has 110% the survivor's run speed. And that's all to make up for the fact that he's a ranged killer. So, getting into his add-ons. Easily the best add-on you can run on him is the Warden's Keys, which moderately increases the spear gun's reload speed. Whenever you could only fire one shot at a time before needing to reload, this speeds it up by a full 0.33 second, a full third of a second, which is really important. Pairing well with the rickety chain, or not the rickety chain, the modified ammo belt increases it by, it's a full 0.5 seconds, and you pretty much reduce it by half. The reload speed by half, which is so important. This is his one A tier perk. A tier right here, Warden's Keys. The modified ammo belt, I would say, would be B tier, along with the barbed wire. Moderately increases the survivor's mending time when affected by deep wound. Whenever you skewer a survivor and they're afflicted by the deep wound status effect, it's an extra healing time they have to do. This, I believe, inflicts an extra 3 seconds on that, which is really, really powerful. Just keeping them healing and not doing anything else. B tier right there. I would say that the Honey Locust Thorns are good, which allows you, or the Bayshore's Gold Tooth are also B tier. This allows, whenever a survivor breaks free from the chain, they're afflicted by Mangled, meaning that they're gonna have to heal for 20 seconds longer. And the Bayshore's Gold Tooth allows you to reel in survivors faster, not allowing them to break off the chain as quickly. Getting into C tier, I would say the Iridescent Coin would be a C tier. If you manage to skewer a survivor from 15 meters away, this thing has an 18-meter reach, so you gotta be near the end of it. They are inflicted with the exposed status effect when they remain speared. Pretty much, if you skewer them from a long distance, it's an insta-down. Which, you have to be really, really accurate to get any use out of this, but it's really powerful when it works. Also C tier would be the Bayshore Cigar, which decreases the stun duration whenever they break free from the chain. The Prison Chain, which increases the amount of time it takes for them to break off the chain. The Tin Oil Can, which decreases the cooldown when you miss a shot from 1 second down to, I think it goes down to 0.6 seconds, which is really good. The Tin Oil Can pairs really well with the Warden Keys. Getting into D tier would probably be, honestly, all of the yellows. This is just a worse version. The Poison Oak Leaves are just a worse version of the Barbed Wire. The Jaw Smasher is pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie. It allows you to, it increases your movement speed while holding down the sights. That's it. It's not really good because you're not really gonna be moving that much, you gotta aim. The Chewing Tobacco is just a worse version of the Prison Chain. The Gold Creek Whiskey. The Gold Creek Whiskey moderately reduces the terror radius while you're holding down the spear gun sights, and reduces the movement speed. You're not going to try and trick somebody with this because they're going to be looking at you. They're going to be looking at you, seeing if you're holding up the sight or not. It's not going to matter if your terror radius is smaller when they can just see you. It's not going to matter. D tier also would be the Hellshire Iron. The Hellshire Iron is so specific. It is the same deal with Pyramid Head and the Iridescent Seal of Metatron. For as long as the survivor remains speared, the auras of all survivors within your terror radius are revealed. So not only do you have to spear a survivor, they have to be within your POV, and they have to be within your tiny terror radius. This is not a good iridescent add-on. I don't understand why this is an iridescent add-on. Other D tiers are the Snake Oil, which is just a worse version of the Bayshore's Gold Tooth, and the Spit Polish Rag, which is just a worse version of the Tin Oil Can. His worst add-on, single worst add-on, would be the Rickety Chain. Survivors can break free twice as fast. That's awful. That is beyond awful. That's F tier. Not good at all. It's just not, like, why? And the only upside to it is getting 50% more blood points for spearing. meaning that's brutality, but only for spearing, and that's it. And they break free twice as fast. It's not good. If I had to... Oh, that's right, the Rusted Spike. This, after hitting a survivor, inflicts mangled. I would honestly have to say that this is actually better than the Honey Locust Thorns. And, like, I would say it's B tier, actually. I forgot to mention this one. But whenever you hit a survivor while they're chained, it inflicts mangled, which is way better than actually having to let them off the hook. I don't understand. These should honestly be switched. Getting into an ideal perk build, this is my personal favorite build to run on him. These 3 perks right here, these 3 are mandatory to play him. Barbecue and chili for that long distance map surveillance, and, you know, more blood points. I always like to run this. The Monitor and Abuse, which I run on more stealth-based killers, decreases your terror radius by 8 meters when you're not in a chase, and increases your FOV, meaning that you can see people, so you have a wider screen, being able to see more people, and your terror radius, whenever you're patrolling the map, goes from 24 to 16 meters, which is really small for a base terror radius for a killer. And this guy needs it because he's a slower than normal killer. Save the best for last. Every time you hit a survivor that's not your obsession, you gain a token. And each token gives you a 5% decreased attack cooldown. And you can earn up to 8 tokens, meaning you have up to 40% attack reduction. This is so good on him, being able to spear a survivor, reel him in, hit him, and then get right back into it. This is super important on him. And the last perk is honestly up to you. You can run any, like, Pop Goes the Weasel. I like running Discordance, being able to know where multiple people are across the map. Noed is really good on him, because when all the generators are finished, you can spear people, reel them in, and it counts towards no one escapes death, meaning you instantly put people into the dying state. Devour Hope is good. Thrilling Tremors is good. That's the Ghostface perk I was talking about. It's honestly just up to whatever you like to run. Yeah. So, yeah. This has been the Deathslinger. I hope that everyone out there actually learned something. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'm so glad I was able to cover this guy, because he is my favorite killer in the game. I love him. He's literally just a man with gun, but it's so funny. He's also a really high skill cap killer to play, so he's a killer you would want to get later on, whenever you're more familiar with the game, and because he's not an ordinary killer at all. Yeah, I hope everyone has a good day, and I hope you all learned something. This has been Smash Moop with the D-Files, and have a thick and fog day to you all. Goodbye, guys.